3 weeks later, many months later.
All right, welcome back to the Real Precious Network. We're here on the Adoptee Foster. It's another Tuesday, but I'm excited to be here. Thank you guys for being here. Definitely hit that like button, share the live. Even if you don't hit the like button, share the live most definitely to get out to those who may be adopted, those who may be interested in the conversation, those who may adopt and foster children. Awareness in the adoption community is so important. Awareness, education, it is very important. So definitely share the live, whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on YouTube, definitely share the live. Like the video, and hit the bell notification so you guys know when we go live. You know, we're live on Tuesday nights with the Adoptee Foster. And then on Wednesday nights, we are live with the Men's Forum. And it is a men's panel where anyone and everyone is welcome to join. The base of the panel is a men's panel. And we just talk about real life things, relationships, where we're not pointing the fingers, but we are trying to set some behavior straight and identify those behaviors. And here on the Adoptee Foster, we are adoption, adoptee, and foster care advocates. We say the uncomfortable things out loud. We have the uncomfortable conversations because 9 times out of 10, those who are adopted do not voice their feelings publicly. They don't voice them publicly. They feel like they have been shut down. There's so many reasons, and which we'll get into tonight, actually, on why adoptees do not speak about their stories, because no story within the adoption realm or dynamic of family is the same. It's not a monolith. We're all adopted, but we all have different stories. And within having different stories, we may feel the same way, although our situations are different. And some of us may not feel the same way. You have adoptees who, are thankful for adoption. They say they have no trauma for adoption and that their adoption was the best thing that happened to them, which is true. But within adoption, we have to realize there is a lot of duality. So before we get into all that, Mr. Leon, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I can't complain.
Where did cold weather come from? That's what I'm trying to find out.
I don't know.
It was
I have no
the
clue.
last 2 days. The last 2 days, I got a freezing warning on my phone.
Yes. Ridiculous.
And hey, what's going on, Chelsea? Hey, Tammy. What's going on worldwide?
Yes,
I'm doing
this
good.
was
The weather is crazy. It's bipolar. Don't put your shorts on yet.
not yet.
We we still fighting through it. But I'm doing good. Ready for another conversation and ready to give my personal opinion, as you know.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. You don't have to do this live with me, but you choose to. So thank you. And to give some love to those who are in the chat, worldwide collaborations, give some love, some hearts, some hearts, some hearts. Welcome, 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 worldwide. Thank you so much for being here. He says, salute, salute. Tammy Murphy says, hello, hello. How are you? Thank you so much for being here. Definitely hit that like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel. And definitely let us know if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I love how you guys engage in the chat. That's one of the best things for us to the best ways for us to engage with you, because then it becomes personal, right? You're asking a question, you want to know more facts. And you know, in this type of space and within this community, again, being vocal is very important. It's very important for your mental health, for your physical health. Adoptees are about 35% more likely to hurt themselves because they cannot navigate throughout their adoption journey. And you know, I've never felt, you know, like I ever wanted to hurt myself, but I was hurting. And so it took, you know, a lot. It took for me to recognize it. It took for me to receive and accept help. And it took for me to just accept my life the way that it is. And so we definitely open this space up for those who are feeling the same way. You may not have the language or the words for your feelings, or you may, and you just are not ready to speak them yet. That is okay. You can sit quietly in the chats and observe. And if you do have a question or you have a thought, definitely let us know.
For sure.
All right. So tonight we're going to get into some topics that you wanted to get into. I believe last week I was supposed to prepare a show that way and it didn't. I went a different way. So tonight I said, you know what, let me honor Leon's request. And you wanted to speak about, and you know, we talked about this not on the last show, but the show before that, your request of going through pretty much the feelings, what adoptees go through. You know, let's go through the steps, the different phases of feelings that adoptees go through, because again, adoption is not a monolith, and so everyone will not have the same experience. However, we may have the same feelings. Adoption brings on the same subject for adoptees, and that is trauma. You know, even those who are very happy in their adoption still face some degree of trauma, because the first phase the first phase of adoption is loss. Okay, so before adoption becomes a gain, it often starts as a loss. And we did go through this last week a little bit, but if you're watching for the first time or didn't see last week's video, we spoke about adoption being or loss being the beginning of adoption, and how a lot of adoptive parents don't really tap into the loss. They just want to gain. I gained a family. I completed my family. We're going to move on from here. We're going to do things, you know, business as usual. And the child is stuck in the middle, like, okay, I'm here and I'll do these things. However, I have feelings that I can't quite explain. I don't know if it's proper to explain them. I don't know how you'll feel if I explain them. And so, yeah, I'm just going to go along for the ride for a little bit, you know? What do you think, Leon? You know, as loss being the first phase that us adoptees go through, and feeling
That's the beginning of the Twilight Zone.
the Twilight Zone. Yes.
So the reason why I refer to as the Twilight Zone, for those that are new, it's like a feeling that you never really get rid of.
Right.
You might get some closure as you get older. You might like meet your parent, you meet your family, you meet if you have siblings, you know, stuff like that. Like in the beginning, you're trying to figure it out. Like you're trying to understand. And when you're that age, you don't really understand what's going on. Like you don't um it's like you're trying to create it's like you have two identities, right? Like it's like your personal identity, right? Where you're trying to actually build yourself up and you're trying to discover your oneself. And then there's the identity that you had before you were adopted. And you're trying to discover or you're trying to bridge the gap on those two identities and trying to make them mirror or at least understand like what I should do next or because they don't explain this stuff to you when you're little. Like they just, like you said, you know, welcome home and let, let the party begin.
Let's get
Basically,
comfortable.
yeah. And so, um, you know, when I was reading, I never knew about these stages until I actually started um, talking to you and trying to understand like what these feelings were that I had because I didn't know. And no one sat down and was like, okay, um, you know, if you're feeling this way, this is what's going on, or if you experience this, or if your parents are acting this way, this is what's happening. Like I never, no one ever, not to my knowledge, ever sat down and was like, this is what is happening. And so when you go back and when you're an adult and you start reading this stuff, you're like, oh, so that's what, that's why I was doing those things, or like that's why this was happening. But as a kid, like you don't you just trying to figure it out. You're trying to understand and you're trying to just go, I guess, with the flow and try to see what the flow is, right? If the flow is up, it's up. If it's down, it's down. So I um, really understand, how all of those emotions came about. And so I'm looking forward to talking about them because I really started getting into this, especially when we started talking about it. And when you think about I don't know about for you, but like when I look back, I can see certain traits that they talk about, right? Like so, maybe not all of them, but there are certain traits that happen where you're like, oh yeah, I definitely, I definitely was doing that.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
So as you were speaking, I was thinking of a clip that I didn't even upload to the background, but I just sent it to my computer so I can play it. But
Hmm.
you were talking about discovering and identities, and like I was saying when we were opening the show, that within adoption is a huge amount of duality, meaning two things can be true at the same time. And it's not that they can be true, it's that they are true, right? Two things are true at the same time.
Hmm.
And if you're not acknowledging both realities, then at some point or even instantaneously, the child is going to see you as not accepting them because both realities make them who they are. Both realities shape them into who
Hmm.
they are. And so both realities have to be acknowledged. There is no taking one without the other. There is no, okay, you're my adopted child, but we're not even going to talk about your past because it doesn't even matter now. It matters. It always mattered. It mattered for you in this case in order for me to be here, and
Hmm.
so and that's even with uh, parents with children who are very happy with their situation. We're going to get into it because we're going to get into the Simone Biles story, okay? And Simone Biles story is a success story, right? But there's also a level of trauma in her story that doesn't get coverage because her coverage exists of her being a world Olympian, a
Hmm.
champion, the best at
Hmm.
her at what she does, the top of her class. No one can beat her. However, there is an element of her story that you do see the duality in who she is. But before we get into that, I do want to play this clip, because if you saw the thumbnail of this live tonight, you see Simone Biles as well as Colin Kaepernick, and they're looking like superheroes. So, okay, it's giving me a little message over here, like, you got a little bit too much going on back here. Okay, I need you to clean it up. Clean it up. All right, so let me see what I can do in order to play this. But as I get this video up, you know, what I want you guys to see in the video is the reality of the discovery of an adopted child or a child who is in foster care, and how we mentally see our lives and how society sees us, but the reality of what we go through is not necessarily the same.
Yeah, it's really mental gymnastics,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Let me see. I don't think it's gonna let me. Let me try it one more time.
Oh, and I did start reading that book. It's actually really, really good.
Um,
The book that you sent me.
yes. I'm sorry. I'm so concentrated on trying to get. Okay, I didn't do that right. Hold on. Let me take that away. Okay, here we go.
Was a foster child.
All right, so he's pretty much talking about our heroes, you know, the heroes that we see in comics or in movies, and how they all are the ones that he names anyway, not all of them, but the ones that he names are foster children or children who got adopted or orphans. And check out what he says about the nature of who they are, why they see themselves this way, and how society doesn't treat them in the correct manner.
Harry Potter was a foster child. Jane Eyre was adopted. Luke Skywalker was fostered. The fostered, adopted, and orphaned child is central to popular culture. What is it about them which makes them perfect characters for writers to use in adventures? I'll tell you what it is. It's that outside of having a family, they have to search for who they are and how they connect with the world, and they have no family to calibrate that. And therefore, they fully realize their potential. This challenge to society from the child who has no family shows how society is inhibited in caring for its most vulnerable, for all kinds of reasons.
It's spectacularly screwed up, isn't it? That we should make our heroes people we treat terribly.
So isn't that incredible, though? And ask yourself, why do we think of them as a problem waiting to happen rather than as a solution? If the government is a parent, then how it treats its child should be how we judge it above all things.
And I wanted to say, I don't know if you knew this, and I've seen a video on it. Actually, in other countries, they see that adopting children at birth like as a abnormally. You know, they don't really want to do that. They would rather adopt a kid like maybe when they're 4 or 5 years old instead of right at adoption, you know, right at birth.
What's the reason?
They were saying that you know, it's really not a chance for a mother to make a decision like right at birth
Mm-hmm.
because you're so emotional at that point, and can you actually make a good decision as soon as you're giving birth?
Yeah.
And they were talking about that in Australia, and some other countries that I was reading into. If I can find that video, I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, I know here, in the United States, I'm not sure how extended this is as far as the adoption process. But I do know that there is a time period in between the mother pretty much, you know, forfeiting her parental rights and the adoptees actually, like the ink being dry, let's say, on the
Hmm.
adoption papers. There is a time period where the birth mother can come back and say, I don't want you to adopt my child. And so a lot of adoptive parents do get fearful of that time period. It's almost like an anxious feeling because they're like, well, what if her mom or what if his mom wants to keep him? And it's like,
Hmm.
what if the child's parent just, has a turn of events and says, you know what, I don't want to do this. Um, and adoptive parents feel like that's a loss for them, right? There's loss all around there. It's not just a one-sided thing. Again, adoption is there's so much duality in it that it's not a one-sided thing. It's not a us against you. It's not look at what you did to me, type of situation. It's a
Hmm.
how can we all get along in this community together and hear each other as well as see each other?
Right.
Because just because adoptees may have grievances with their adoptive parents, that doesn't mean that the adoptive parents don't have grievances with their adoptees. It goes all the way
Hmm.
around. But if you're not leaving space and room to have these conversations, it's just going to be a rinse and repeat day by day. And you're going to feel like you're not progressing in the relationship. You're going to get stuck at a point where your relational growth is going to be stunted because you're not taking the opportunity to actually see how beautiful adoption is. He said something in the video, and he said, these children are people see adoptees, foster orphans as problems waiting to happen. What if they're the solution,
Well,
right? Like,
they always think that uh, kids who are adopted are always gonna be like the kids that are like the rebellious type kids. The ones that are gonna cause problems, the ones that's gonna be stealing your money when you ain't looking, and all that stuff. So, because that is a thing, right? There are some kids that are adopted that they that's just the whatever they faced, you
mhm.
know
I was
whatever
a
they
little bit- I ain't gonna lie.
whatever.
I look, I had to be a behavior that was, trained out of me. So those stories aren't always, I mean, I wasn't no mean, like, gremlin or whatever, but I had tendencies about me that needed discipline, so because of that separation, because of what's called the primal wound, and that is a book. The Primal Wound is a book that, I believe that those who are adopted, those who want to adopt, those who are thinking about adoption should definitely
That should
read.
be my next book.
Yes. I wouldn't even mind going over this book in these lives, honestly, to tell you the truth, even before the other book. No shade. I do want to go through that book. However, this really is one of the first adoption books was published by an adoptive parent who wanted everyone to kind of get the inside scoop, right? And this book
Mhm.
actually put words to the thoughts and the feelings that adoptees and adoptive parents go through. So again, it's not a one-sided thing. um However, because adoptees go through the primal wound and we're taken away from our biological roots, there is a psychological trauma that happens. And so your nervous system is always trying to protect itself. And within protecting itself, that means I'm not talking to anyone else. I'm not being verbal with anyone else. I'm going to do what needs to be done. And if I have to do it, I'm just going to do it. And so, we have to get out of the notion that we're alone in this, when the whole objective of adoption is to bring families together. And it sucks that there has to be loss, but again, the loss needs to be addressed. Because if it's not addressed, then you'll be living a half truth, and living a half truth is pretty much like living a whole lie. I mean, why why get half the truth? Why live in half the truth? When you might as well just live in a whole lie. You'll actually probably be a little bit more peaceful living in a whole lie, because then you don't have to tell yourself anything else. You don't have to educate yourself and move, push the needle forward to progression. But living in that half truth means you're struggling. You're struggling between that truth, and you're struggling between stagnation. And
somebody said it looked like you didn't take no mess.
me?
Mm-hmm.
Look, I grew up in North Jersey.
From the north.
North Jersey. And so, it was one of those things. It's just in me. Like I'm always called, you the strict one. You so strict. I don't. Look, we don't got time for games. Those years are over, but yeah, I don't play disrespect. I like, even in high school, I remember people used to like have like little nicknames, and I'd be like, no, my name's Michelle, you can call me that. So we're gonna nip that in the bud right now. I'm not one of the little ones you be playing with. I'm not one of the little, because everyone should approach everyone with respect, and I think that's the bare minimum. So the first stage that we go as adoptees that we go through is loss. Before we can see adoption as a gain, we have to recognize it as a loss. It just is what it is. There is no beating around the bush. Separating from biological parents is a traumatic event for children. There's literally a study: if a birth mother has a breast pad full of milk, and there is a mother who is not biologically connected to this child, if you put both of them in front of the baby is going to go towards its mother's milk. It is not going to just, oh, what's this milk over here? No, we don't know that milk. The baby don't know that smell. It's very foreign to the baby. And so the baby's going to go where there is some familiarity, where there is some comfort, where there has been, protection for that baby for 9 months. There's the loss of originality and culture when you separate children, especially I always say, transracial. I think I was saying the wrong word before. Transracial adoptions, meaning, Colin Kaepernick, I believe he's mixed with black and white. He was adopted by white parents. And so there were black roots that he wanted to explore, and that wasn't necessarily taken kindly by his adoptive parents. And so, that culture, you lose that culture. And neglect. There are children like myself where I believe when we got taken from my biological mom, I don't even think that she was there. I think she left, and when she came back, she found the caseworkers taking us from the apartment that she left us in. And so I don't remember how long we were in there by ourselves. I don't know, but neglect is something that stays with you. That is talked about in the primal wound. That is something that takes over your nervous system. I believe I told you guys before, I had a hernia, a navel hernia, and that comes from crying a lot. I didn't know why I had it when I was younger, but after researching and after tapping into who I am and going through my story, I'm like, why do we have those? Like, how do you even get that? And so I'm like, wow, do I remember crying a lot? No. However, I had to have been crying a lot in order to have one of those. So there's definitely a loss. But we're going to go on to the second one, in which confusion and curiosity as a child grows and questions are forming. If you are just joining, definitely hit that like button. Let us know you in the building. Eugene, I see you. Hello, hello, hello. Sure didn't. Stigmas with adoption kids. There are definitely a lot of stigmas, a lot of things people do not want to talk about, do not want to save room and space for, but we're going to have to do it. Hey, Precious. Hello, hello. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. All right. I think those were all the newcomers that I saw. All right. So number 2, the second phase that we go through is confusion and curiosity, right? Confusion and curiosity. So I saw this video.
So I wanted to ask a question before we get to the video.
Mm-hmm.
So in these different stages, I believe they list ages of these periods, right?
So this isn't necessarily a study that I pulled this from. I pulled these from a lot of different sources. However, there were no specific ages, but like here it's saying childhood, confusion and curiosity. So I would say that would be, up until you become a teenager, because then we're going to get into, the teenage phase. So there's no numerical age here, but it's, different phases throughout us growing up. Adoptees growing up. King, hola, thank you so much for being here. So we have childhood, confusion, and curiosity. So I saw this video only because, I'm playing it only because while this woman is not a child anymore, there was something that was taken from her that only her birth mother could give her, and it was taken away. And so this confusion comes in where she's asking questions, and we'll go over it after it plays.
Of your situation.
Well, but you could have.
Hold on. There we go. So it says, I asked my adopted mother why she changed my name after agreeing not to. So the adopted mother agreed with the birth mother that they wouldn't change her name, but the adoptive mother changed her name anyway. And listen to the back and forth conversation that they're having surrounding this.
You guys didn't smoke. She asked that you guys didn't change my name, though.
I know, but guess what, Diana? She has to take away everything because she had a control problem, and this is part of your situation.
Well,
so she says she has a control problem. The birth mom has a control problem. You see how emotional this adoptee is right now, speaking to their adoptive parent. I'm gonna run it back just so you guys can take it all in, because there is no acknowledgement, and we talk about this all the time, but you'll see there's definitely no acknowledgement about surrounding how she is feeling and showing up in this moment.
You guys didn't smoke. She asked that you guys didn't change my name, though.
I know, but guess what, Diana? She has to take away everything because she had a control problem, and this
pretty much saying, well, guess what? Suck it up.
We did it anyway.
Right.
part of your situation.
Well, but you could have given me the middle, like a middle name.
I did. I changed it.
No,
to
I
it.
know, but I'm just saying, like, you
I
could have
changed
left
it
the
back.
Jesse as the first name.
Well, there wasn't anybody in my family that in our religion, we name you after the people in our family who.
There was nobody in my family named that, so I named you after the people in my family. And I don't want to sound like this to make it seem as though I am talking down on adoptive parents, but this is bringing awareness of the decisions that you make that are so outside of the adoptee, but then you include the adoptee and want them to feel okay with decisions that you are making, decisions such as changing their name, something so precious to them that's the only thing that they have given to them by their biological parents. It's like once you get adopted, you literally leaving with the clothes on your back and your name.
No, that's her being selfish.
Right.
That lady didn't even take accountability um, with her in that moment and was like, look, you know, we wanted to do this for protection or, we wanted, she didn't even say that. Like, she didn't even say, hey, you know, from what we understood from how your adopted, your biological parents were, that they might have tried to look for you or, she could have said, like, even if she didn't mean it, she could have just said that in that moment. It would have made it seem more sincere than her just talking about they have a control problem. Like somebody said in the chat, that this lady clearly has a control problem. Like, what?
Right.
Like,
However, she's pinning it on the birth mom as if there's a competition between the birth mom and the adopted mom, and the sole
hmm
purpose, honestly, at some point you're working together to make sure that the birth mom has a pretty much not necessarily a good experience with giving up her rights, but you're working hand in hand with birth parents, and not necessarily up close, but with caseworkers, with adoption agencies. Really, you guys are on the same team for a little bit, and then it seems like once you get the child, it's like I don't know you.
all the rules out the window, and
Yeah, like, like what she's controlling, she wants to do this, she wants to do like she popped this baby out of her body parts.
so I think a lot of people don't understand this, right? Like, so really, the adopted parent situation is just they are the vessel to get you through life. They are like, you know, don't don't be changing look, don't be changing no names. Don't be doing none of that. But like all of the other stuff that you have to do as a parent, to be there to show up. Um, that's what you're there for. Like you're there to be the vessel to get the person to a point in life where they will be a good adult, they'll be a good human, and they'll be able to contribute to society in whatever way they choose, right? Like, so changing their name, you're stripping them of you're double stripping them of identity. They already been put up for adoption, and now you want to go ahead and change their name because you felt like it. That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah. And it does cause confusion and curiosity, because now it's just like, you're confused as to whether you can trust your adoptive parents. You're curious now as to who else in your family can you find that still have their, real names. It definitely confuses, and not even in this situation where there's a name change, but the confusion comes in a lot of times when adoptive parents wait to tell their children that they're adopted, right? They're like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean I'm adopted? What do there's one thing if you're going to sit your children down and tell them and present that to them, and it be something, a conversation that you have. And I always say early and often, have the conversation early and often.
hmm
But if you don't, and you just feel as though you're going to wait, or you feel as though you're protecting that child from facts of their own life. I don't know how you can protect me from facts about my own life. But that's what they feel as though they're doing. When you do that, then the confusion and curiosity comes out, because it's like,
hmm
confused as to why you didn't tell me. I mean, you've obviously are raising me. And so there's no question that you're the guardian, you're the parent, you're the superior in this situation.
hmm
But there's curiosity, because it's like, I have a whole other side of me, two sides actually, if you count the father too, because we're not just going to act like, fathers don't count. When mothers have babies, some of these fathers don't even know about these babies. Some of these fathers
hmm
don't know that the babies are being, given up for adoption. So you have a whole nother, lineage, not a whole nother lineage. You have your lineage out there, and it's like, what? That's very overwhelming to think about, let alone when you start the exploration journey. But we're gonna finish this video.
I think the only way, I just want to say this before you continue.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only way, and Chelsea said in the chat, I think the only way you should be able to change your name is if they feel it's going to be imminent danger and security to that child's life. If they feel like those parents are going to go above and beyond to try to get their kid back, I think that's the only way, and it has to be documented. You know, I think it should be a law that you can't change the name unless you feel like it's going to be a a security risk. Like you're already at a loss, and you you already have a hard time figuring out all that stuff on your own in the first place, and then a name change. Come on.
It's just life comes at you fast. Isn't that what they say? Like literally, life comes at us fast when you're adopted, and these stages not only creep up on you, but then they settle in, but then they go away, but then they come back. At certain it's almost like double dutch. Like which emotion is which phase and stage am I going to be in this week? It's just a reality that if you've never lived it, you won't understand.
We care about. If she wanted all that and she wanted everything done right, she should not have placed her kids for adoption.
Lord Jesus.
Say what?
If you wanted all of that, mind you, it wasn't even about her. Again, it's about the child. I'm giving my newborn child this name. The name is hers. It's for her to grow into. It's for her to be called this. And all the adoptive mother can focus on is if she wanted you to have that name, she would have not given you up for adoption. I bet you this adoptive mother was all smiles. You didn't even know she had this slick tongue. You couldn't peep that, right? She was all smiles. Oh, I can't wait. My family's going to be complete. Only for her to be, she looks like she's probably in her 20s, right? Maybe 20s. Only for her to get to this moment to hear her adoptive mother say, if your mother wanted you to have the name that she gave you, she would have kept you. Mind you, she already in tears. She's already distraught. But again, our feelings don't matter because someone did something for us and we should be grateful.
And I got a feeling, just my observation, and maybe she just like found this letter, and you know how we do. We get to be an Inspector Gadget.
Okay.
And maybe she just found a letter and she probably was like, what the heck?
All these promises, or and if she said that they agreed, that had to be documented somewhere, whether it's this letter, whether it's her whether
in
it
her
was
case file somewhere.
Right. It was somewhere that it was agreed upon, because she wouldn't just say you agreed if she didn't know that to be a fact. And she admitted it in the beginning. I know, but like she
Get over it.
said, like, yeah, that was a plan. However, she wanted to be controlling. Well, how controlling could she be with no parental rights? I mean, come on. Oh God, I just rewinded it all the way.
Not have placed her kids for adoption, but see, it makes her look good. But why?
It doesn't make her look good.
It does, because she wants to control everything, whether they're in her hands or not.
She was about to say possession, because that's how she's treating her right now, like a possession.
Yeah, well, she's dead, so
I know.
And then she's not even here anymore.
Bro.
But
my heart aches for her. My heart aches for her, because when you have that type of emotion and it's pure, this isn't emotion that is forced. This isn't emotion. She's not even raging right now. Her pure emotion is coming out of her based off of her name, you know, and she's trying to address, she's not yelling, she's not screaming. It looks like she's sitting down. The adoptive mother, from the way she's looking, it looks like she's looking up at an angle. So the
Probably standing in a door or something.
right, standing in the door. She's not. And one thing, y'all know, I said it before. I love you anyway. Like, we just want you to love us anyway. And love us anyway means I know you're crying right now and I know you're hurt, but I'm gonna sit with you anyway. I may not even have the words to help you or heal you or comfort you right now, but I'm gonna sit with you. I'm gonna put my hand on your back. I'm gonna hug you. I'm gonna be accountable. You know, yes, there was an agreement. I'm sorry that this has had such an impact on you. I didn't think that far. It didn't occur to me that this will hurt you in this manner. When emotions like this, when you don't meet the need of emotional safety, confusion, curiosity, and she's not going to want to be anywhere near her mom. But yet this child has been told over and over, you must be grateful. Well, I am grateful. However, there are some things happening in this relationship that we have to acknowledge, because being grateful should feel like a natural feeling from me to you. But when you're doing something like this to put a wedge in between the relationship, I don't know how grateful I could feel if somebody poking me in the side with something and I'm supposed to be trying to stand up straight, but you keep poking me in the side and I got this pain in my side. You know, it has to be addressed. And you can tell in this situation that this adoptive mother does not take accountability, nor does she sit in the feelings with her adoptee, who obviously is just asking you questions, wants answers, and wants you to be able to, if you can't empathize with her, sympathize with her a bit, because you adopted her. You took on the role of helping her and assisting her and aiding her in her feelings. But again, people can't give what they don't have. So, you know.
And then her trust meter has just been devalued by 50%.
Yep.
Because, like, if you can't honor a simple request where they're asking you, keep the identity that we gave the child, not try to put your own spin on it, you know, not try to do what you want to do because you can. And I talk about this all the time. Integrity is what you do when no one is looking.
Mm-hmm.
It's good when you're on camera or when you in front of people, but when you change people's names and when you go behind a a promise, and that just tells you she ain't about her word. If she promised to not change the name, and then, I mean, you heard her in the video, like, if you don't like it, get over it. It's what's done is done. Like, that's basically what she's saying.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, it's the way it goes. So in the end, once you place your kids, they're in someone else.
Boom.
So again, confusion, curiosity, things like this can pique the confusion and curiosity on top of just the natural confusion that you feel once you find out that you're adopted. Once you find out you're adopted, that is opening the can of worms. And that's why adoptive parents don't want to be transparent about the fact that their children are adopted with their adopted children, because once they open up that can of worms, there's going to be questions. There's going to be the floodgates, not even a can of worms. It's you open in the floodgates, because now there are going to be questions that you may not have the answers for. There are going to be emotions that you never had to sit with someone and feel with them before. There are going to be scenarios where you're going to have to stand in the gap for someone who can't stand in the gap because now their parental rights have been severed. You're standing in the gap of a birth mother who honestly you can't compare. Adoptive parents can't compare to birth parents. Yet in that situation, it's almost like, well, if she wanted you, she would have kept you. So now I got you, and now that I got you, I can do whatever I want. When
Yeah,
you
I mean, it's like, what are we talking about? Like, and I bet you, I mean, I don't know when this video was made, but I bet you from that point forward, whatever her mother said, she was probably like, yeah, right.
Yep.
I don't show me.
Because
Show me. You got to prove it to me now.
And it's not that it's, I was going to say, how do you come back from that? Because it's not coming back from that, because the only way to the other side is through adoption. The only way to the other side, you got to go through it. Like, you can't just adopt these kids and then be like, all right, they're 18 now, let's keep it moving. Or, they're big enough to talk and walk and do things on their own, so my job is easier now. No, it's a daily walk through the journey with them.
I actually think that it gets harder because once you start developing like your own thoughts and like your own, whatever path like you're developing, right? And so when you start to ask questions, or if you inspect a gadget like I was, like if you start to find things and you start asking questions, and like you said, they don't have the answers to, and they never talked about it. It's like they want to deflect and they want to, oh, well, we don't really want to talk about that. We just want to, we just want to live. Yeah, we want to happen what's happening now, not what happened in the past. And I'm like, no, that ain't it.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. But yeah, I wanted to also, before we get to let me see. So the third one is identity formation. Who am I? But before we get to that, I wanted to play a little bit of this video. It's 8 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole 8 minutes, I promise you. However, I do want to play a little bit of it. This girl's story I resonate with a little, like it's almost similar, just because she was adopted at 9 as well, and I was 8 turning 9 when I got adopted. And so when she spoke, I was like, wow, like I'm still wowed every single time I hear an adoptee story, because again, they're all not the same, but there are similar patterns and behaviors that happen within all adoptee stories, no matter what stage you're in.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw this and I was like, I'm going to play a little bit of that.
When I say this, do not think that I am selfish, I am inconsiderate, but just understand, like, you ain't me. You didn't go through this. This is my story. The most traumatic thing that's happened to me thus far is probably still being adopted. I feel like a lot of people cannot understand what it's like to be adopted at the mere age of 9, especially being the fact that you remember your family, you remember your cousins, you remember who your mom was. You already, like, this isn't something you go to a place and you forget these things. I'm not.
Does that sound familiar? Does it sound familiar? Because when I came up on this video, I was like, girl, me too.
5, I'm very much like alert. I feel like my adoptive mom did not understand what she was getting herself into with taking me and my little sister at the time. I still say this to this day. I feel like I watched my little sister turn into an autistic little girl, and I will scream it from the top of the mountain. I will always say this. I watched that lady turn my little sister into an autistic kid. I would see my little sister just declining, especially when she put her in an autistic school. And a lot of people, if you understand how autistic schools work, it's a school base, but it's not like classes. You're just in different rooms doing lifestyle shit. You're doing cooking classes. You're doing coloring books. You're doing filling in the boxes so you know your names and stuff, but it repeats every year. So there's nothing that you're learning different. And I feel as though even with like that situation, I never got grace because they never put themselves in my shoes. They never was like, well, I wonder how it is to be 9 years old and to have a whole family that you know, and then the next day you cannot communicate with none of them. You just got to forget them.
Confusion and curiosity. It's like, hold on, I'm confusion here.
Yeah, and it's like obviously I didn't, I was adopted at a younger age, so I didn't really know my family, or to be honest, I mean, I was 3, so I know you really resonate with this story because you were adopted at around her age. So you like you were saying, you were telling us before, like you um one day you were playing outside, to the next day you driving somewhere to
Yeah,
be with somebody else. And I mean, I could only imagine like what that, I'm telling you, it's the Twilight Zone. You cannot
it is.
tell me that that is not.
And like she said, it's putting yourself in the child's shoes. Like, how dare you not do that? Like, how dare you not say, I couldn't imagine what it would be like if, even if you couldn't have kids, let's just say your niece or your nephew, whoever, if
Mhm.
you know they were taken away from the family and we spent all these years with them and now they're just gone from the family forever.
Like without a trace.
Like without a place, no one, stepped up to say, no, don't do it. We'll take that. Like,
Mhm.
adoptive parents don't do that enough, putting themselves in the adoptee's shoes. And no matter what age you're adopted, because again, even when you're a baby, there were still things that you exhibited being adopted as not a baby, but 3 years old. There were still behavioral and nervous system things that had to be worked out inside of you for your parents to finally be able to connect and finally be able to kind of get through to you. Not talking is a symptom of being withdrawn, is a symptom of, I'm protecting myself, I'm not talking to you. I don't know you.
And I didn't realize that until I actually started reading about this. And I
Yes.
can really, like I said, I can really resonate with some of that stuff because I was actually doing it and I didn't know like that's what it was.
Child, you thinking something wrong with you? Ain't nothing wrong with you. You don't know these people. You was completely normal for doing what you did. Hey, my word. Y'all ain't gonna get nothing up out of me, okay? Like that. That's why I always say be real with yourself, because you have to take inventory of what has happened to you, and then once you take inventory, now there has to be some type of observation.
Mhm.
What can I observe? What characteristics, what character traits, where did I lack? Where was my personality coming out and it never really was acknowledged? Because that happens when you're not around people who are like you and you're around people who are not like you. You being who you are can look like a disruption, or you can look like an oddball out when you ain't like them. Like, why am I trying? Why are we trying to fit this peg square into a hole? Like, why are we trying to do this now? Okay, why are we
Yeah.
trying to
I
do
mean,
this?
but it makes sense now. But like when obviously I didn't know like what these phases were or what this was. But like when you go back and you read and you think back, like, man, like I was doing that, or I did exhibit parts of those, traits or whatever. And it makes sense, right? But like I said, um, I don't recall ever speaking to anyone about these particular topics per se. And so when I read them or when I see videos or like when we're talking about it, it all makes sense now.
Yeah, because the body keeps score. That is another book. If you wanted to purchase it, The Body Keeps Score. I believe Gabor Mate wrote that one as well. But it pretty much, the summation of it is that we don't have language and memories of those early thoughts or experiences. Like, what's crazy is I'm a year older than my brother, but my brother remembers us being with our biological mother, but we was taken away
Mm,
from our biological mother when I was 2, which means he was 1. But how do you
wow.
remember? Like, he remembers her body shape. He remembers the rooms we were in. Like, how do you,
But
and
that's why they say like some people, um, it doesn't matter if you're adopted or not, but like they say some people don't remember their dreams.
that's me. I was just talking about this with somebody.
Yeah, so I'm like that in a way.
Mhm.
So like um there are certain dreams I remember, and then there's other ones you wake up like, what that was that sleep or what? Like
I might remember one little tiny detail. Like, I know there had to be more that happened, but this is the only part I remember.
or I only remember the bad dreams, not the good ones.
Yeah, you know, being adopted is definitely a dynamic that, if you have never been in our shoes, it's very hard to speak outside of it, meaning having different opinions about it.
Mhm.
And of course, everyone can have an opinion, but to know the reality that so many people's stories are so different, but so the same as well, is just another reality. All right. So actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one down. I may come back to it. Um, Next phase is going to be identity. So okay. Identity formation. Formation. I think, there we go. Which is a huge one. So identity formation, we just talked about childhood, right? But identity
Mhm.
formation really comes in when you are now in high school, right? Because in high school, you just want to fit in. You starting out as a freshman, you the new kids on the block. You got the seniors there who's been there, some of them 4 or 5 years. And you are trying to figure out who you are. Are you playing a sport? Are you involved? I played basketball. I was on the marching band. But even doing those things is not what I truly wanted to do. And so, my identity at that time was, yeah, I play a sport and I'm involved in an activity, but it's not what I truly wanted to do. That's not exactly who I am, but I did it because my brother played basketball too. It was probably convenient. And when he was playing football, I was on in the marching band. It just, when you get older, it's like, oh, y'all think y'all slick. Like, this is convenient. It was convenient. But no, identity and who you are, I think it goes without saying that adoptees struggle with their identity, especially if you are in a closed adoption and everything is stripped. Your whole biological side of the family, roots, culture, everything is stripped from you. So identity formation is definitely going to be something that you struggle with, but you're not really going to know that you struggle with this until you get to that middle school, high school stage, where there are people who may be in a higher grade than you, a lower grade than you, and you are around the multitude. Elementary school, you stayed in one class all day, right? Yeah, like one class all day, unless you went to, different classes for special help on different subjects. But in high school and middle school, you moving around. You want to go. You got a locker now, you within the general population. You're hearing the chitter chatter. You still got that innocence, right? I was going to the 4th grade when I got adopted. So 3rd grade still had that innocence. 4th grade, I was like, a little different. You know, you get a little bit more independence about you. But when you get to that junior high school age where you now dressing yourself, you're doing your own hair, you know, you going to the barbershop, you sitting amongst the folks, you know, hanging out with dad, and you know, you start to try to form who you are.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times for us, we do it from the outside in, because from the inside out, we don't know. A lot of adoptees don't have the information. They never were told. And so they know they feel different from the inside, but they can't reach that part of themselves. And so they do it from the outside. So now I want to dress like everybody else. I want to look like everybody else. I want to fit in, because at home I don't fit in, or I don't feel like I fit in. When did you start going through your identity?
I knew you was about to ask this. So I'll go back to middle school. So when there was a class that I wanted to take, because I wanted to see if I would actually like doing like so it was TV and electronics
Mhm.
to repair. So I could go in the summer and I could see if I liked it. And so we had vocational school in high school. So you could go 2 years and you would get a certificate from vocational school. So after I took the summer class, I was like, oh, I kind of like this is like my speed. I like this. And so I enrolled in Votech. So, you know, that was I went 10th and 11th grade year. So in Michigan, you know, high school is basically 10th grade to 12th grade. So in middle school, you know, middle school is 7 to 9 and high school is 10 to 12. So basically that's really where I started forming my identity of who I wanted to be. But I still had challenges, right? Because like even I didn't connect with a lot of people in school. Like it was a lot of people, you know, back then doing foolishness, and I'm like, I ain't about to get in trouble. My parents ain't about to come up here and tear me a new one. So, you know, you navigate to who you feel comfortable with, right? Like so that's always been a thing for me. Like even when my parents will like tell me no, like you can't, no, we're not doing that. Mm-mm. You can't go to this party, you can't go to that party. You know, obviously I'm pissed, but then um, some end up happening at the party. Like somebody end up, you know, fighting, you know, whatever happens, right? And then they'll be like, "See, I told you so." But you don't think about that like in the moment, right? Like
Yeah.
you're just pissed because you can't go.
Right.
Um, and I actually didn't start playing. I played baseball in 12th grade, but I bowled also. So I bowled all the way through middle school and high school. So that was kind of like my activity, right? Like, so that's really where my identity kind of formed. You know, I played um, football, you know, in middle school too. Really, I didn't know that I would like football as much as I do now, but that's a different story. Um, but I said it to say every, you know, how you formed your identity is not how I formed mine.
Right.
Um, you know, and how the next person forms their identity is not how we formed our identity. And now I'll throw the question back on you. How did you form your identity?
I formed my identity in college.
Hmm.
And when I say that, I say college because that is when my biological sister reached out to me and said, girl, I'm your sister. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, I never forget that day. And I forget a lot of things, but um, that day, you know, I was literally about to walk into college. I had just parked, about to walk into college. This was my community college. So I went to community college first, and then I went to 4-year college. I played basketball at my community college, got a scholarship, played basketball, and I was about to walk into my science class and I got a call and I'm like, who is this? Now I really don't answer numbers that I don't know, but then I must have been caught slipping. I was caught slipping. I answered the phone. And you know, she was like, this is so and so, I'm your sister. I went through my adopted mom's paperwork, and you know, your name is all over it, you and your brother or our brother. And I'm like, what?
Your mouth dropped to the floor.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, hold on. What? So I remember in foster care, I was told that I had sisters, but we were always told we would get pictures of them. You know, they never told us their names. It was just like, you have sisters. Like, okay. And they said that we would get pictures, never got pictures. Long story short, I couldn't go into class. Like, I just could not go into class. I wouldn't have been able to concentrate. I had questions. I wanted to know things. And so, yeah, I didn't go that day. And after that, it turned into, you know, meeting my biological mother, meeting, you know, my biological grandmother, the lady that's in my life book, you know, reuniting with her because we were with her mother before we got put into foster care. So it was her mom who took care of my brother and I. Now in high school, like I said, people knew me for playing basketball. People knew me because I was, you know, in the marching band or my brother's sister or whatever the case may be. But I didn't form my identity there because, like you, I wanted to go to a tech school. I wanted to go to a school where they, you know, taught you a certain, it wasn't necessarily a trade. I was into cosmetology. I love fashion. I love, you know, clothes and hair and makeup and all this stuff at that time. And so that's what I wanted to do. But yeah, no, you're going to the local high school and that's what it's going to be. And so I never got there. So when I was in college, I did all those things that I wanted to do. I, you know, modeled, did some pageants, did some shows with people that was in America's Next Top Model. You know, I did the things that I wanted to do to form who I was authentically. Then on top of meeting biological family, not to say that my adoptive parents isn't a part of who I am, but when I started to form the identity, my own identity, I felt as though I needed to know what my roots were. I needed to know, especially with my sister reaching out. It was just like, okay, the curiosity is not about to kill this cat. Okay, we going head on straight, and you know we're gonna see what this is about. And so that's where my identity formation really started, was in college. I never got in trouble. I stayed out like the average person did, but it was, you know, pure fun. It was never a situation where I was caught up in, I had, you know, the fun people have in college. Still got good grades, still got up for school, for class, but it was a way for me to learn myself without being under my adoptive parents' guide and their underneath of their roof per se. And it wasn't for me to be rebellious. I truly felt like I couldn't be myself under a roof of people who didn't acknowledge who I was fully. And so when someone doesn't acknowledge who you are fully, and you continue to subject yourself to that, that can stunt your growth, because it can make you feel like you're not enough. It can make you feel like who you are doesn't matter. You can, you know, start being a people pleaser. Like, well, you know, as long as you like what I do, how I do it, I show up, you know, that should make me a good person. I should be okay with myself. And for me, it wasn't enough. And I knew that I had to go to school. I had to leave home in order to find out who I was. And that was my main reason for leaving home. I had to know who I was because it wasn't being spoke about or acknowledged in the home of the people who raised me, from this past, or, from the situation that I was in. And, because that wasn't being acknowledged, I had to go through that self-exploration on my own. And I was okay with that. I was perfectly fine with that. But that's when that started for me. When I went away to college and I stayed away in the dorms, and I was able to kind of have that space and not someone stunting how I saw myself fully, because I only saw myself as the adopted child who lived in this household. But now I want to see myself fully of all the things that make me of who I am. And so that's when I started.
That makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to get back into this one.
Fucking crazy, right? Down to food. I lived with my grandmother before then. I wasn't like bounced around to different foster homes or anything. I lived with family before I actually got adopted. So pro is a pro, con is con. But down to food, I had a whole grocery list that my grandma already knew what I liked, like my yogurts, this, that, the third. And then I had to go to a place that was more so healthy, more so organic. I've never eaten bread with seeds in it. And I remember looking at the bread like, and she's like, that's what we eat here. That's what we're gonna have. No, we don't buy that. And I just remember how like, I gotta get out of here. And it just made me snap. Everything, like I would talk crazy. I wanted to run away, literally. I'm gonna be so honest when I say this. I have no clue how I'm alive today. Obviously, because of Christ above.
So we're gonna get into her and what she was doing. And it wasn't so much so, I call it, this is part of her forming her identity. Wasn't the right way to do it in a lot of these instances. But being out on your own and being in a home where you feel like you're fending for yourself and being out on your own are two different experiences. But when you're out on your own, you really find out who you are because you have no one but yourself. So these are the things that she was getting into. And it is very common for adoptees, male or female, to go through these type of life experiences.
But I put myself in so many different situations, especially with Tinder. When Tinder came out, I put myself in so many fucked up situations, whereas though like I just didn't care. I remember going to Motel 6 highway. At my big age, I won't even go through a hotel that's next to the highway because you're not about to transport me on the road. But I remember I was going to motels next to highways, drinking and shit, young. I remember I was having guys come and pick me up. I had one from West Virginia come and pick me up, one from Ohio. I would put myself in so many different fucked up situations. I remember one Tinder date, we went to a cemetery. It could have went so bad. Because like I needed something to escape. I had a strict parent who was a hoarder, who hated my guts. And I feel like as children, adults don't understand. We can sense it. And I am an empath. You can sense when someone doesn't like you. And that lady hated my guts. Still to this day, when I think our last time talking, my brother's funeral, of course. But then like she had a phone call with me and she was like, I love you. You know I love you. And I cried. I immediately just start crying on the phone. She was like, hello, are you there? And it's like, okay, I'll talk to you later. I was asking for that lady to love me when I was a kid and she could not do that. Could not. I remember.
So she's saying she was asking, for the love and she couldn't do that. And she acted out the way that she acted out because she felt as though she wasn't enough, but she wasn't in a home where she felt as though she could rest in that love and feel like she was enough. And not being embraced. I think it's an African proverb. The child who isn't embraced by the village will get burned down by the village or something like that. The child who isn't embraced by the village will burn down the village. Meaning if you're not embracing this child, if you're not taking it serious, if you are not doing your research, if you are not seeking education, you are not going to be able to bridge the gap between loss, adoption, and cohesiveness and being able to live in harmony with one another. If you don't do those things, then it's going to be really hard for you to connect with your child, and the child is going to feel like there is something wrong with him or her. and they're going to act out and they're going to do things in an outwardly manner to really express how they're feeling inwardly because they don't have the language for it or the regulation, emotional regulation for it.
And that's and that's just not adopted kids. That's just kids in general. Like when you have people who have their own birth parents and they treat them the same way. I mean, it's really um it's a different dynamic, but it's not, right? Like so when you were adopted, like you didn't ask to be there. Like you didn't say, "Oh, I want to go to this family. They look like they would take good care of me."
Mm-hmm.
No. They put you there and then you just supposed to force that love, and some people embrace it and other people they be like, "Look, we're here to get you through life. We're
Mm-hmm.
not here to love you."
Yeah.
And there are people that are here to love you forever and not just when you turn 18, right? Like so it just and like you say, it's real about education and how people see what the outlook of a human being's life is because it doesn't stop when you turn 18.
Nope.
Like you still have to be there for the ups and the downs and you know all of the ups and flows of life, right? So um and when she was crying to her mother and her mother was like, "Yeah, I'll talk to you later," like what? Like, could you imagine, like, your daughter, just saying your daughter come home crying one day, you just was like, "Oh, girl, knock it off."
Right. But, but again, there's a biological connection to that. So my biological instinct is to do what I did when she was a baby. When she cried, I comforted her. I had to figure out what she needed. Was she wet? Was she hungry? Was she, uncomfortable?
Mhm,
And so when you don't have that biological connection, not only do you have to figure those things out, but you got to figure out how you're going to do the things that's going to bring comfort to a child that is not biologically yours. Not only do you have to figure out what's wrong, you got to figure out how to do it. Whereas in a biological connection, it comes natural. Like it's a natural, let's not talk about postpartum and things like that. Let's just, keep it regular.
mhm,
Naturally as a birth parent, it's a natural reaction to want to know what is wrong and to fix and adhere to the needs.
mhm,
However, when you adopt, I'm not saying that it's not a natural reaction, but sometimes you in your head probably feel like, do I want to deal with this? Don't I want to deal with this? Like, you know what I mean? And as birth parents, those options weigh out in our brains too. However, we know that, I always say that kids are the perfect salespeople because they will continue to come back over and over, asking you the same question over and over and over and over and over and over until you give them a yes. And so that's the same thing with emotional trauma with adopted children. They will continue to act out over and over and over and over and over until you meet the need. They will continue to behave, this in a disruptive manner, attitudes, disrespectful, not saying it's right. However, it is a symptom of adoption. It is a symptom of trauma. And so until you address those things, it's going to happen over and over and over. And they're not like the birth parents saying, "Hey, mommy, hey, daddy, I need X, Y, and Z. Can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this?" Until you say yes or no.
mhm,
They are doing it in an inward emotional, it's almost like we're blind, but we can see, right? We are blind, but you can see. I'm blind to the fact that I don't have this biological connection here, but I can see someone here who is filling this role, but I'm still not feeling what I should be feeling. So it's a complex dynamic of trying to figure out who you are when those who agreed and decided to love you don't necessarily give you the love that you need, but the love that they want to give you. And sometimes, you know, even in regular relationships, you know, they have the love languages, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you give love? How do you receive love? Well, they need love languages for adoptees, because the love languages are going to be so different yet so similar. And if we can only just stop for a second and stop and say, take a step back and say, okay, I love this way. As a person, I love this way. But being as though this child is not my biological child, how are they going to receive my love? Do I continue to love the way that I do and just say, if it works for you, it works. If it don't, oh well, I am who I am, right? You can't change me. This is what I do. This is how I show it. Or do you say, I may have to change up a couple things because they're not really receiving my love, and I love them and I want them to know that I love them, but I'm going to have to show up in a different way so I know that they're receiving it, so they know that I'm sincere with it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that doesn't choose to get a little bit uncomfortable when it comes to love is not someone that's choosing to love you. It's someone who's going to continue to choose themselves over and over and over again, because when you love, there's going to be an aspect of being uncomfortable. There's, you know, I hate to take it here, but you know, God was crucified. That had to be uncomfortable, but it was all out of love. It was all out of love.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you're not willing to get a little uncomfortable when it comes to loving someone, especially your choice in loving someone, if you're not choosing to get uncomfortable, then that's not a sign that you love me. It's a sign that you love the decision that you made and you want other people to love the decision that you made. But when you're not an active participant in that decision that you made, it's hard for people to really identify and create an identity for themselves, because it becomes about you.
Yeah, I mean, and some people, like, you know, some people are just naturally nurturers and good parents. Like they know those receptors, they know those small things,
Right.
um, and they know when to accept what you're doing, and they know when to not accept what you're doing. Like my parents, they were big on, um, you know, if you got a temper tantrum, they'll let you go until you get tired. And like, are you ready to talk like a human being now? You know, because my one niece used to do that all the time, and my mother would be like, "All right, whenever you're ready to talk, just let me know. I'll be here." But it's just simple things like that, you know, and um, being able to care for people and show compassion and I'm gonna tell you where it really shows up when when you're younger and people start to pass away in your family, and how your parents actually show up for you when you are grieving. Because when people first start to pass away, um, you don't know what that feeling is. But when you have somebody that sits down and talks to you about grieving and, you know, how people pass away and how, you know, why they have funerals and, you know, why they do these things, you know, I think that's very important because they have to try to acknowledge your feelings in a way, because you're very sensitive at that point, you know, because anytime somebody passes away, like your emotional imbalance is very high, because anything somebody says can, you know, it might rub you the wrong way. I know when my mother passed, um, I was very emotional and things like that, and but you know, I think it really starts when you are younger to learn, you know, because death is a part of life, right? Like, so you really have to learn how to actually grieve the time that you need, and also be able to move on. You know, not say move on like that, but like be able to adjust your life to that person no longer being here.
Yeah. But you know, again, we're gonna take it back to the top. Our first stage of adoption is grief,
Hmm.
right? So we're literally grieving someone that's not dead, right? And so that to me would be the first place of how you know, because if you can't, I believe if you can't humble yourself to to see what it's like in another person's shoes, especially your child's shoes, if you can't humble yourself enough to do that, then when it comes to deaths, funerals, things of that nature, you're not going to be, comforted when you grieve the actual deaths. Like,
Hmm.
so but I don't think that adoptive parents realize that loss needs to be dealt with by grieving, because it's such a celebration when you sign those papers at the courthouse and now you're a family, now your last name changes, now all that is you have a new life, like you just wake up and you have a new life. Or you're born into a family that's not your biological family, and now you're 8 or 9 years old and you're feeling really distant from these people, and you're like, why do I feel like this? Like, I know they love me, I know they're celebrating me, I know that we're having a good time, but I feel really distant from them. And then
Hmm.
don't not know that you're adopted, because then it's just like, okay, now it all makes sense. But I think that, if you can't help your child grieve someone that is still living, knowing that they'll never see them again as if the person is passed away, then you know that there's some work to be done. There's definitely some work to be done on how to make your child feel comfortable with the transition. Tammy says, when I was 10, I asked my adoptive mother why she didn't show affection. She said, Black people don't do that. I'm a same race adoptee. I don't understand now. I understand now she didn't receive it, so I couldn't give it. Mm. And it's difficult when you want to have that type of relationship with your parents, but again, like I said before, they can't give you something that they don't have. Now you can learn something that you don't know, so there are no excuses. I feel like there are no excuses, but if I must speak on the behalf of an adoptive parent, they can't give you something that they have never witnessed or experienced or have gone through, because it's not going to come from a genuine place. Now they can go out and learn some new things and learn how to, be an advocate for you, learn how to be there for you, learn how to do things differently
Hmm.
from what they did in their past, because it's not only helping you as a child, it's helping them as an adult become a better, well-rounded adult. you know it's crazy how when you ask people, yeah, let's go get some therapy. I don't need no therapy. Hold on now. That's like a car saying I don't need an oil change. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, what are we talking about here? I don't need no therapy. And all you're doing is talking. All you're doing is actually sitting down with your thoughts, instead of eh, going on in your day and acting like those thoughts don't exist. But the actual work is sitting down and saying, this is how I feel, and I don't know how to get up out of this feeling, or I don't know how to address this. You know, Again, I try to be, let's play the devil's advocate. They can't get what they don't have, but it don't mean they can't get what they don't have either. I never accepted the lady that raised me, because I knew she did not like me, and I didn't like her either. And her DNA daughter couldn't understand when she died, I refused to go. My dad was my hero. Real thoughts from a real person, you know? At some point, an adoptee gets the opportunity to choose. And that's why I always say adoptive parents will see the fruit that they bear when their children get older and they choose to be around them. They choose to go over to the house. They choose to call. They choose to engage in conversation. They choose to share those moments because you know that that child felt so safe in your love that they're going to choose it over and over and over and over again. You know, they always say there's no love like a mother's love.
That's, man, listen.
It don't have to be a biological mother, but if you're a mother down to the sense of the word of protecting and nurturing and caring, and you know, you're a mother. And a child is not going to want to be away from that, even if they have questions about their biological mother, even if they have reservations about their story. If you being a mother down to the bone, and you're emotionally invested in your child, and fathers too, it ain't all up to the mother. Don't try to father your mother. Try to father your child through the mother, because that ain't gonna work either. I'm gonna tell you that right now. But fathers matter too. If that child feels like they can rest in your love and choose you day in and day out, that's when you know, that's when you can test your fruit as a parent.
When you can talk about your parents in a way that they are the light of your life. They brought life where you might be in a dark space. Listen, I love my mother to the core. She was like my ace. Like you said, when you can definitely at any age go to your mother and be like, hey, I'm having a problem with this, or what do you think about this, or it's always nice to get opinions from people who especially are older and can give you good advice.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it might not be what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the advice that you yearn for, right? And she's told me a lot of things. She's pointing me in directions that I didn't know what they were, but I'm here, talking to you guys now. So obviously she pointed me in the right direction of life. And that's really what, like I said, the adoptive parents are the vessel to get you through life, and it's your job as an adopted person, if you choose to look for your family whenever that time comes.
Yeah.
Because some people, I've been reading stories online, some people, they don't want to do that. They don't want to search for their family. That wasn't my that was my case.
Right.
So I think it depends on like the makeup of the person, because everybody doesn't want, everybody don't want to go through it, because that is an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah. And honestly, even if you don't go through it, you still going through it. Like, let's be honest. Like, whether you meet these people, whether you meet your family or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you meet your family or not, life has brought you to the crossroads where you have to ask and question yourself and make a decision if you want to do it or not. And even if you don't do it, silently and unspoken as unspoken as it is and as silent as kept, you always wonder, what if you did meet these people? What if you did you did have that reunification? What if you did see what you look like? What if? And that's why I believe being real with yourself, because there's no way, this is why my self-identification started in college. There's no way I was going to continue going on with my life And one of my sisters called me, and I'm not going to be curious as to who my people are. Like that just wasn't going to, I just wasn't one of those people. But I think the people who feel as though they have no need to find their biological family is because all of their needs were taken care of.
I
Again,
mean, all of my needs were met, but I still had a desire to, like you said, to see who I look like this, just put my eyes on who brought me into this world, you know. Um, but I did have anxiety, like because I had kept putting it off for so long. I
mhm.
started getting like anxiety inside of me,
I
you
think
know.
that all of your needs were met, emotional needs were met to the point where meeting your biological family didn't feel like um, it wasn't an offense against your adoptive parents because they had that conversation with you.
Hmm.
I think in my case, I didn't have those conversations. Again, we didn't address the past. We didn't talk about the lives that I've lived before getting adopted. And so there was never a conversation about meeting or, I don't think that your adoptive parents have to give you the blessing to meet your biological family. I don't believe that that should be a thing. Um, However, it still wasn't an open conversation. And so it felt like an offense when I met those who I was biologically connected to. And it wasn't something that was welcomed again as part of my whole story. And my whole story, they only had me and my brother. Those other people didn't exist. They didn't have any emotional connection or ties to them. They barely had them with us, you know? And so again, your emotional needs were being met because even in a tough situation of, oh my God, he wants to meet his biological family. What do we do? Well, we sit him down, we talk to him, we see how he feels about it. We'll let him know, don't have these grandiose expectations. We'll get him prepared. But everything after that, we'll be here when he gets back. That is meeting an emotional need for an adoptee who does not have a connection with their biological family. You may not see it as it being an emotional need being met because it was continued being met. You know what I mean? It was something that didn't seem foreign to you because it was a natural it was a natural way of parenting for your adoptive parents towards you and for you. But
Yeah, and I don't know if like they could have been hiding their emotions from me, you know, and just to meet the needs of what I was asking, right? Like so they could have been, but I don't think so. I'm just saying like as, you know, as conversation, but you know,
but
sometimes people
even if
might.
were, even if they were, it was to put your needs. They knew that you had a huge need, right? And they knew that one day that this day the day would come that you would be wanting to
Mhm.
possibly meet your biological family as this natural feeling springs up out of us. And so, that is a huge, oh my gosh, as a biological parent, you know how many times my daughter needs come before mine? Joe, what? What? Like there is like I have no no choice. The needs come before mine. Okay. And so that's how they operated. As your mom probably and dad operated as if they left the hospital with you, you know. And so those emotional gaps, yeah, you had questions about your biological family and that was natural, and you didn't question your adoptive parents' love for you, and you had the normal questions that adoptees have, but you didn't
Mhm.
have a lack of your emotional well wasn't dry. It wasn't like, oh my God, like I'm supposed to love you guys, but this relationship is just not a two-way street, you know. And that makes a huge difference in how you progress in everything in life. Like whether it's a job, a career, a relationship, a life, you know, event, marriage, all of those things where your parents are supposed to be involved, and, you know, rest in peace to your parents. But those things they're supposed to be involved, you welcome them gladly with open arms because they choose you, and so you choose them. That's just how, you know, that is supposed to go. But when it doesn't go that way, we now have to do a little bit of repairing, a little bit of seeking of education, becoming aware of things, because it doesn't mean that the people that didn't show their children the emotional awareness that your parents showed, it doesn't mean that what they did was wrong. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that there needs to be a little bit more awareness on areas that could have gone a little bit better. So I never mean to sound like, you know, adoptive parents are out here getting it wrong. No, you're getting it right to the level of knowledge that you know. The more and more you seek this knowledge, the better you can get at it. That's it, and that's all. Miss Teresa says, unfortunately, I never had a mother, period, and can care less about the DNA lady that is still living. She told me 3 years ago. Unfortunately, I never had a mother, period, and can care less about the DNA lady that is still living. She's I'm telling you, these stories run deep, and I know this particular person, you know, she's not a child. She's well into her adult years. And so these things affect us. It's an until we die, we're gonna be adopted, you know, until we die, we're gonna be adopted. And so these are lifelong journeys that we're on. So speaking of journey, grief, anger, and reframing the story, we're going to get into Colin Kaepernick's story because many of you know he, you know, was a football player. He stood up for Black Lives Matter. He, you know, would be the one on the sideline getting a knee and solidarity of African American rights. However, he was adopted, and he was adopted when he never was put in a foster home, but I believe there was like a 6-month waiting period before someone was available to adopt him. And so his biological mother raised him up until he was adopted. And when he was adopted into a white family. I'm going to put this up on the screen so we can watch this. And then I'm going to get into a live that he does with someone else. I'm not quite sure who the speaker is on the live with him. But there's some things that they say that are very interesting and true.
I'm a pretty introverted person. I hope it's true to form, and that's just kind of how I navigate the world.
It's his true high school coming-of-age story, his journey embracing his Blackness, despite resistance from many, including his white adoptive parents.
I know my parents love me, but there were still very problematic things that I went through. I think it was important to show that, no, this can happen in your own home, and how we move forward collectively while addressing the racism that is being perpetuated.
He took cues from his icon, basketball star Allen Iverson, who he said wore his Blackness like a suit of armor. And teenage Kaepernick wanted cornrows to match. He's getting what roles, his mom asked?
Oh, your hair's not professional. Oh, you look like a little thug.
Your mom said that to you.
Yeah. And those become spaces where it's like, okay, how do I navigate this situation now?
Grief, anger, and reframing the story. How do you navigate the situation when your white adopted mother is telling you look like a little thug?
But it also is informed why I have my hair long today.
The grown.
Did anybody see his was it on Netflix? I forget. He actually has I guess you could call it a movie about his life. And he's not playing himself, but there is a kid in the show that's pretty much living out his life. And how he wanted to explore his African American roots, and he would go get his hair braided. He would play basketball. He wanted to hang out with people in his, in his culture, and how his parents, there were these microisms, these micro comments that amount to really big things when you're adopted and you don't know your identity and you don't know, where you get this from, where you get that from, who you look like. When your adoptive parents have these snarky comments or these side comments, it does a lot to you, because again, in your brain, you're playing over and over and over again, where are the people that look like me? Where are the people that act like me? Where are the people that I can relate to? And not only relate to them by a signature on adoption papers, but actually relate to them, meaning we might do the same mannerism at the same time because we're wired the same, literally. But he says something important in this clip right here.
Difficult for people to have a nuanced conversation around it. The people that love you and that you love can also perpetuate very problematic elements.
Right.
And those things can exist at the same time. And part of it is like, how do you grapple with that?
Like,
how do you navigate that? And especially at a young age, where it's like, are you equipped to navigate that? And are your parents equipped to navigate that?
And also, who do you go to, right? Like, who do you talk to about that if you don't? And, I said this to you last week, but I'll say it again publicly. Like, I think that's a conversation across race. I think that's a conversation for cis parents raising trans kids. I think that's a conversation for hearing parents raising deaf kids, right? I think that's a conversation across gender identity and sexuality and so many other things. And like you said, we have to be able to sit with these things in tension, that you can love somebody and still be capable of hurting them, right? And so what is your responsibility to be thoughtful and to educate yourself in what it means to be a truly caring caretaker for that person? So, I'm glad that we're having a conversation, but it is
very.
So, like you said, dealing with these at a young age, how do you even deal with it? Like she said, who do you even go to? And because you may not have those resources, it does turn into grief. The grief does turn into anger. And then you reframe the story sometimes in a bad way rather than a good way, before you get the help, before you, seek therapy, before you start talking about your story. All of that comes to the surface, and you're left sitting with it all, wondering who is going to sit with you, because everybody doesn't go through this experience. So I wanted to show Colin Kaepernick's story, because while he was adopted and while he loves his parents, there are just some things that they don't see eye to eye on. And it's almost like, will they ever see eye to eye on it? I remember when this story came out, people were saying, oh, well, your adoptive parents, they adopted you and your birth parents didn't want you. How dare you come out and talk about them like this? If it's the truth, he's not talking about them. He's talking about his experience with you. Again, Gabor Maté. We experience our parents. Okay, no matter how much love our parents give and show, we are in experience with them. We're not counting how many times they say, I love you. We're not counting how many times they read us a story at night. We're not counting how many lollipops they give us in a month. No, we're experiencing their love in real time. And if his experience with his parents in real time was that he was trying to get his hair braided and he was told that he looked like a thug,
I think his mother may have already had some preconceived notions on like people wearing certain hairstyles, because that's what she associated with.
Yeah, but who's those people? Who's those people? Who's those people?
Black folks.
Oh, okay. And he's half black.
Yeah. Like, so what I'm saying is, she didn't take the time to try to understand Like, is this a thing where people who um because in basketball, a lot of black players wear braids and stuff because they always on the road a lot and they don't have time to get their hair cut. Or like they will go to certain cities and get their hair lined up, or get a retwist or whatever. So she didn't really take the time to try to understand him or really want to understand him. If she just said, no, you're going to look like a thug, why would you say that? Um, and I'm sure there's probably been other things she said that he didn't agree with or he thought that was kind of mean or cruel.
Yeah.
Um, and she clearly didn't have the tools to understand. And the people he could talk to is probably a counselor at his school. Be like, hey, I'm having this conversation with my mom and she doesn't like certain hairstyles. What how can I get her to open up or change her mind, or can I bring her in so we can talk? Um, we don't know what kind of level of maturity he had at that time, right? So, um, you know, and it's really up to the parents to understand what the kids want because it's just a trend, right? It's just like you said earlier, we're just trying to fit in. We're just trying to do. Look, I was wearing stuff I didn't even like just to try to fit in. I was trying to do everything I could. But I'm going to tell you, my high school years was some of the worst times of my life.
Really?
Yeah, besides in 12th grade when I graduated.
I'm out of here.
Um, it just it was just a time I was just and then 10th grade, like I I went through I went through a period where I wasn't going to school. Like I was skipping classes.
Why?
I don't know. I was
Okay,
just
you need to
I
see that, Leon. Like you don't know why you just wasn't going to school.
I was just tired. I just wanted a break. I
From
was
school?
emotionally,
Or
yeah, I was just emotionally drained. Like I was just, and then my teacher, like in the middle of the season, um, middle of the school year, he was a black guy. He was like, look, I know you're probably going through something. I don't know what it is, but let me tell you something. If you don't start coming back to school, you ain't gonna graduate in 2 years.
oh, it was that many days you was missing? Where would
Yes.
you go?
Um, so I had my own car. So
Mm-hmm.
I would just go to the park or I would just go somewhere. I wouldn't be close by school, just put it that way. I would be somewhere like at a park or something, or just, relaxing. But when he told me that, that's when I really got my stuff together, and I was like, all right, you don't have to worry about it again. And so after that point, like I started doing what I needed to do, right? Like, so then I started, you know, coming back to school, and doing, he would give me extra work to do and I would do it. I got my grades back to where they needed to be. But sometimes, people can see that you're struggling. It don't have to be your parents, right? Like it can be somebody who actually cares. And that's what's good about people who are teachers. They actually really, really care about their job and they care about the future of people that aren't causing trouble, right? Like that aren't, being, people who trying to be a class clown and, people who trying to do all that foolishness. But um I understand where he's coming from though, because I mean, I do think my parents were a lot older, so it was a lot of stuff they didn't understand what kids was doing. You know, why are you walking around with your pants sagging and why you ain't got no belt on? You know, so stuff like that. You know, but I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah. It's all a part of identity. You know, that goes back to what was that, number 3, identity formation. Who am I? You know, if you're not able to form a healthy identity about who you are with the help of your adoptive parents, because adoptive parents play a huge part in your self-esteem issues too. If you have self-esteem issues, or if you have issues expressing yourself, it's your parents who are supposed to see that and say, okay, I know that he likes to do this, and so I'm going to push him this way to do that. Or I see her personality is, you know, she likes to be the life of the party. Maybe I should get her involved in drama class, or like, you know what I mean? You're supposed, as a parent, whether adoptive or not, foster care or not, you're supposed to see your children for exactly who they are and see what makes them come alive, and then put them in an environment where they can do that naturally. Right? That's seeing your child for who they are. That's intimacy. And so when you're not allowed that right, that does turn into grief, anger, and reframing the story. Reframing the story of adoption is this wonderful thing. And although adoption is this wonderful thing, there are a lot of micro-isms within this adoption journey that not necessarily doesn't make it a wonderful thing, but it makes it a complex journey to travel. It makes it a complex road to travel when you're still trying to allow it to be this beautiful thing in your life. Search reunion. I don't know if it's because I'm doing this or if I just didn't say it right, because I don't want it to come up like that. I want it to scroll. So then we go into search, reunion, or acceptance, right? So after we come out of the grief, the anger, reframing the story, we then go into, do I search for them? Do I want to reunite with them? Or am I just accepting the fact that I'm adopted and this is how God wanted it to be? And if I know them, I know them. If I don't, I don't. I'm fine either way. I wanted to get into Simone Biles' story on this one, search, reunion, or acceptance, because again, we know Simone Biles as a world-renowned Olympian, breaking records, time after time after time after time again. She even left for a little bit, came back, still was first in all categories. So she never lost it. But I don't know if you guys have ever seen her biological mom and heard her biological mom story and on how she's trying to connect with Simone Biles. But I'm going to put this up here for those who may not know who she is and may not know her adoption story.
I was a foster kid, so I know some of those hardships that those kids go through. When my siblings and I entered foster care, it was because our biological mom was struggling with drug and alcohol abuse. I was 3 years old. I just remember like us as kids being so hungry, and then I just remember this cat that would get fed. And
what's that?
Is it just audio, no video?
No, there's a video.
Oh, we still see Colin Kaepernick.
Oh, I let me see.
Well, at least on my side.
Let me try now.
Not like quite us.
There we go.
And so we were taken, and thankfully we actually got to stay in one foster home, and we were all together.
Simone spent 3 years in foster care, during which time her grandparents were frequent visitors.
And it was like some of the best times ever. We were just so excited.
When she was 6, they officially adopted her. And this new life soon led 6-year-old Simone to discover her passion.
Were you on a class field trip when you went to a gym? What happened there?
I never even heard of gymnastics before. I was just like, oh, I bet I could do that.
So it was almost like your situation as far as, you know, picking up what you wanted to do right away, you know, at an early age. She literally went to a gym and was like, oh, I think I can do that. And literally did it. And so, you know, she, like I said before in the beginning of the live, she is definitely a success story. But I don't think that, and I think people have these negative views like, oh well, her mom struggled with drugs, her mom struggled with alcoholism. And in this point, in this video, I don't know for sure, but she is clean. She has to be clean enough to have been around the family a few times. It's her, Simone Biles' mother's father adopted her. So it was more of a kinship type of adoption, meaning someone in the family took her in and adopted her officially. And so state-wise and legally wise, she is the daughter of her biological mother's father.
Mm-hmm.
She's a daughter and a granddaughter at the same time. However, I don't think that this part of the story gets played enough because people look at her biological mom and say, oh, she just wants money. And while it may look like that from the outside, because those people may not be adopted, as an adoptee, I see a biological mother who realizes that she wasn't there. She takes accountability, but this part of the story doesn't get enough airtime like the other parts of the story because Simone Biles turned out okay. She don't really need her biological mother. She don't really need, you know, to commingle with this woman because her life has just been great. And as an adoptee, we know that being vocal and being loud and proud of your story is the only way you're really going to get through it. So I'm going to play this of Simone Biles' mother, and we'll talk about search, reunion, or acceptance afterwards.
And that's my past, and that's what it should be left at, the past. I feel like he didn't have to be so harsh about it. I am his firstborn, and he could have been a little bit more classy with it, you know? Really, he didn't have to put me under the bus like that. But I mean, you know, I did go through my struggles and everything, but you didn't have to go through it like the way you went through it. I've been following her for years. I'm so proud. I mean, I'm just proud. Ecstatic. I mean, speechless. It's priceless, you know? When we do talk, it's briefly, I want to say maybe every 3 months, you know, when I call, when she calls. We have vacation together. I was invited when she won her first title, her championship, the P&G, in 2014. I was invited there. That was in Pittsburgh. We went on a cruise together, 2009. That was like a family reunion. Before then, I was invited to the Expo Center here in Columbus. She was in a competition. That was way before the Olympics and the champion and stuff. And I've been invited in October when she goes on her signing tour. I speak with her when I can. You know, she's very busy. I just want to say I love you, Simone. I'm so proud of you. Go Team USA, and I'll talk to you and I'll see you when I can.
So I think I had read her father said, do not contact us for 6 years because of what you have put these kids through. I ain't mad at it.
No, I'm not mad at it either, but with her coming back around, the overwhelming majority of the comments that you see, and that's, you know, like you said, you read that somewhere, which means you got extra knowledge from somewhere to be able to come to that conclusion. But the overwhelming consensus of it was, oh, she's just coming back around now because she wants money. And it's like, no, she's coming back around because that's her daughter. That, like,
I don't think she's doing it. I think that, you know, she has come to the realization from being sober, if she's sober, that she made some bad choices. And nobody's perfect. We all make choices that, you know, we have to live with. And she has to live with what she did to those kids at that time, and not being able to see the bigger picture of their future, right?
Yeah.
But her father seeing that they had a future, and he took it upon himself. He didn't have to, and he adopted those kids. And obviously we look at the accomplishments, but she probably doesn't talk about her story enough because all we see is the gold medals, right?
Right.
But I had seen a video where she was talking about they would feed the cats before they fed them. Like, what are we even talking about?
Right.
When you talk about, I mean, you said it earlier, when you have children, they come before you.
Yeah.
And if you gotta eat less than them, guess what? You gotta eat less than them. But when you are going through those whatever drugs she was on, um, she probably didn't even realize, or she probably wasn't even coherent enough to know, if that was a animal or if that was her child. Like, so it's sad, but I think when you get to a certain age and you start to think about your life, you look back on your life. And if you've done things that you were not proud of or you want to clean up, I see that a lot in people who are adopted because their parents, some of the parents really try to connect with the kids because they feel a emptiness, right? On both sides.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's just her. There's one thing I don't like what she said, and she said, "Let the past be the past." No, that's how we got here.
Right.
That's like your conditions and your actions is why they had to be adopted.
Yeah. I think it's, let the past be the past could go for people who continue to hold her up to her past, meaning, that's all they see her as. Because there are people who will be on drugs, have been on drugs, not getting off drugs. Like, they can't operate without it. They don't have the tools and resources to get help, or they just won't accept the help, even if they do have the resources to get help, right? They won't consistently do the work to get off. In this video, it looks to me, she's pretty coherent. I mean, if you can remember all them dates of all the places that you've been with her, and places and names and things of that nature, I'm sure that you don't have any substances clouding your memory or your judgment at that point in time in the video. But with Simone Biles, I brung it up with the search, reunion, or acceptance, is because it seems to me that Simone has accepted the fact that her mother had a difficult time abusing drugs, abusing alcohol, and that she had to live with her grandparents, and her grandparents loved her. She lived this great life, and she, accept the fact that when mom come on these trips, I don't look at her as mom. I look at her as a family member, but not as mom, right? I'm sure she looks to her grandmother, her more so as who adopted her more so as a mom than her actual mom. But I showed that clip to show that even someone who is the best, even someone who is at the top of their game and a household name and has made a living for herself, who is adopted, still has to go through these struggles, still has to, do I want to be reunited with my mom? Do I have these conversations with my mom? Is it worth it? Her mom said that she doesn't call Simone. She waits for Simone to reach out to her because she doesn't want Simone to think that she's reaching out to her for money. She wants it to be a natural, she wants her daughter to choose her. And we know that feeling all too well of being chosen as adoptees, whether we wanted to be chosen or not, we were chosen. And so at this point in her life, it's like, I just want my daughter to choose to call me so she doesn't think that I'm looking for anything from her. However, when she calls me, I'll have this real conversation with her. Like, I'm not holding anything back. I don't want her to refer to anything that anybody said. I want her to hear it out of my mouth. And I think that's very commendable for her, because a lot of biological parents go through this guilt and this shame when they are in these situations in life and they have no choice but to relinquish their rights. They go through shame, hurt that is not really acknowledged by society, because in society you're the bad person. And did she make bad decisions? Yes. Did it leave her children in a bad situation? Yes. But in this situation, thank God her parents, which are now, Gabby's grandparents, stood in the gap for her. But now that she is better and she's showing signs of wellness and she's showing signs of being motivated to be there for family, whether it's Simone or whoever, because I'm sure a lot of people got the boot, you know what I mean? A lot of people probably weren't sticking around during this habit. And so now that she's back integrated with the family, with her father's blessing, it's like, don't hold me to my past. Don't continue to look at me as that same person. Will I always be an addict? Yes. She will once an addict, you always an addict. But at the same time, if we want to talk about growth and progression, you got to stop looking at people's transgressions and saying that's all they'll ever be, because that's not showing a good example to Gabrielle, who will probably be starting a family one day. She's married, and you want her to be able to forgive her mom off of her free will, knowing that her mom is doing the best that she can at this stage in life. Because at the end of the day, adoption, we have to accept everything that happens in the time frame it happens. And with the people involved in the situation, we have to accept it until we don't accept it anymore, right? Until we get to a point where it's just like, yeah, I don't choose this anymore. And hopefully that's not the case. But at the same time, we learn how to cope and deal with these dynamics that the average person don't even have to figure out. They don't have to figure out, how do I navigate through my parents' snarky remarks about me, who they adopted, but I have biological family out there that looks just like me and probably just acts just like me too. And I wouldn't have to explain myself to them. So why am I put in this situation where I have to explain who I am as a person? And I honestly feel like there are some people in this world who are committed to misunderstanding you. They really are committed to misunderstanding you, because it doesn't give them permission to be better people. If they continue to understand you, then they can continue to live in willful ignorance. And again, living in willful ignorance is literally living in a lie. You're living in a lie. You know one thing, but you're going to act another way to avoid the conflict, to avoid the head-on collision of what can take place when you address things head-on.
But I don't think that Simone will ever forgive her mother. You know why? Because
Why?
she remembers what happened.
Mhm.
She remembers not being fed, but them feeding animals first.
Mhm.
Like, and I'm not saying that I know what she's thinking, but she remembers those moments being hungry and her mother not taking accountability for that, you know. Um, and who else knows what happened? That was only a snippet of the story.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't think she's trying to get money. I think she really is trying to soften the blow and try to get Simone to open up to her so she can have some kind of communication with her. Like you said, she is allowing her to Simone to call her and not her try to call her first.
Mhm.
You know, and so that is a way of saying, hey, I'm not going to bother you when you are ready to talk about whatever, you can give me a call. And
Because she's just honoring, she's still, Simone Biles' mother is a child in this, almost like Simone is, right?
mhm,
Simone's mother is the child of her father, and her father gave her instructions. And so she's following these instructions in essence. Like, I'm not going to call, I'm not going, if that's what y'all worried about, I'm not going to do the reaching out. If she wants to, speak with me, she can. If she wants to know anything, I don't think that her mother would have a problem being accountable. I honestly don't. It doesn't look like she would be one to run from the questions, run from the scrutiny, run from the criticism. She doesn't look like that type where she would do that, but she also knows what she's dealing with. Chelsea says, I think she won't forgive because of her grandparents who raised her and hold resentment. They passed it down to Simone. And I agree with you. I don't think that she won't forgive because she remembers what it's like to be hungry per se, because she was what, maybe 3 to 6, I believe,
mhm,
um, uh, during that time before she got adopted. I don't necessarily think that she won't forgive because she remembers what it's like to be fed after the cats, or if at all. I think that she won't forgive because she's been living with the father of her mother, who was adamant about not having her mother in her life. Now, I can understand the boundary, especially because I had a mother who was addicted to drugs. So I can understand why they wouldn't want me in the same environment with her. That's a logical 1 + 1 = 2. That
mhm,
nobody, battling that. But it is also her grandparents' fiduciary, assignment to still show compassion in some way, somehow, towards her mother, who's her biological mother. Again, this is a kinship adoption. This isn't, she just went off to some strangers, which means her father has not forgiven her. And that's going to pass down to, she's going to do what she's taught, and she's going to do what she sees. And if she sees that her father and his wife, because I don't think that's her mom who he's married to, but if she sees that Simone Biles, that she sees that her mother's father who adopted her has not forgiven her, that is something that Simone is going to hold on to, especially because they adopted her. They gave her this life, that this is who I'm listening to. This is who I'm going to resemble. This is who I'm going to look up to. If they say that she wasn't there, she wasn't there. Right.
mhm.
So they're doing all the thinking for her. And I pray that Simone gets to a point where you can block out all the noise and really sit down with her mom and say, I hated you for years. I didn't like you. I didn't want anything to do with you. The raw truth. And her mom sit there and soak it in. And her mom say whatever she has to say back. No excuses, no trying to run from it, but address and acknowledge what Simone feels. Because I think there's still a lot of emotions within Simone about her biological mother. But we all know Simone Biles. She show all them teeth. Like, you will never see Simone without seeing them teeth now, okay? She always showing some teeth. But when it comes to her biological mother, I know that there's probably hurt and pain and resentment there, things that the public will never see. And we know this being adoptees. There are things that the public will never see. We take our L's in silence. We cry in the closet. We get, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's not for the world to see. It's for us to deal with and for us to come to terms with and for us to work out and for us to do this daily, you know, this daily dance with God. It's like, all right, now, I don't know if I can keep up with this rhythm. All right, I'm gonna try. But, you know, I believe deep down that is probably still a struggle for Simone, and it will be, because it's not like her mom is not in her life. You know, I have a family member like that. Was addicted to drugs, has children. It's not that she wasn't in her daughter's life. Her daughter knows who she is, but her daughter was also adopted by her great aunt, who was also in the family, kinship care. And so is the great aunt really having conversations saying, your mom has been around, your mom loves you. She was going through something. I saw it with my own two eyes. She's going through some things, but she's here. She's present. She may not be all the way here, but she's here. Like, you know what I mean? So, you know, those are the tough conversations where you got to put your feelings aside, where her dad, you know, can show grace and put his feelings aside to really pour into Simone. Because, I mean, the girl is married now. She's probably going to be starting a family soon. And again, it's great that she was adopted with her grandparents, because now she won't have to wonder. If she do have kids, she's not going to have to wonder, like, okay, what runs in the family. She already knows. And so that's a lesson in itself, you know. So I think as adoptees, and we have this acceptance, and we go through this journey, it's really the integration and owning our full story, right? It's owning our entire story. And that's what, in this case, Simone Biles, it's like, I wish that he could acknowledge the full story, because at the end of the day, her mom had her issues, but she still is showing up. She still is deciding to be there. She still wants to be around. And that takes a lot. That takes a lot of willpower to get off of drugs, to stop, you know, poisoning yourself with liquor. Those are conscious decisions. And so I just wish some of those things are taken in consideration when it's time to really heal, you know, and really have those conversations and really look at things not so close up, but to kind of zoom out and say, okay, what went right? And what was the result of things going wrong? Because some of the result of things going wrong became right. You know, things went wrong for her biological mother, but what the right that came out of that was that she was raised with her grandparents and went on to become this Olympian medal, you know, beast. Like, no one is seeing Simone. So
yeah, but you know, you also have to look at, what if she wasn't adopted by her grandparents?
Depression, probably trying to hurt herself, probably not as driven, probably continuing to seek, where is her mom, where is her father, where is her family, you know. So that's what I'm saying. She was very blessed in the sense that you weren't really in the seat of someone like myself, who, and you know, we don't compare, but at the same time, you know, adopt a drug addicted mother 7 kids, you can't raise none of them. We all get sent out to the masses, out to strangers.
Well, when I say what if, I'm saying that when um she could have been in worse situations, like she could have been in a situation that we wouldn't know who she is as Simone Biles as she is today,
Right.
which is Olympic gold medal winner. And I think she's about to get married and have a kid, and it's in the grand scheme of things, it's really about what she wants as a person and how much in her heart does she want to forgive her mother, because her father don't got nothing to do with this. Grandfather ain't got nothing to do with this.
Right.
It's all about uh-oh. But it's all about, what Simone wants for her. If in her heart she wants to forgive her mother and let whatever happened happen and just live in the moment and go forward. It's only up to her. It's not up to anybody else. Because if she wants to keep minimal contact like she's doing, and if that, and if that's what makes her happy, at least she could see her mom, but not take it any further than that, then that's what she wants to do.
Yeah.
We as adoptees really have the power when it comes to stuff like that, because we can either choose to not deal with the person, or we can try to extend the olive branch to the people that we have found. And if they don't accept it, guess what? I'm going to cut it off.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's only so many times that you can keep reaching out, or you can keep being vulnerable. And like, you just have to be like, look, all right, that's enough of this. Move on, and let's continue to live our life the way that we're living it.
Yep.
What's going on, Coach Berg?
Hey, Coach Berg. I definitely agree. But, one thing I thought of was, Simone Biles' grandfather is her grandfather, which means he might not be around much longer. The grandmother may not be around much longer. Life takes us in, and we actually don't talk about that enough. Maybe I might go into it next live about when people get adopted and then their adoptive parents pass away. We talk about it because that's part of your story, but I don't think we really go into the emotional. I have a sister who both adoptive parents have transitioned on, and it's like now, and our adopted mother has transitioned on way back in 2016. And so, we don't talk about the emotions and the place that we as adoptees sit in, and now we're back by ourselves again in the situation.
Yeah, you feel like an orphan
all over again
as an adult.
And so I said that to say that her grandparents aren't going to be around forever, ever. More than likely, when she decides to have her own children, we all know, and if you don't know, that when a woman has children, her brain completely changes. The things that she thought before she had children, she don't think about no more. The responsibility instantly kicks in, because you have no choice, if you choose to keep your child. But if you choose to keep your child, you're choosing to be there for your child and love and protect and all that good stuff. But I believe that's when it will kick in for her, slightly. And I only say slightly because, again, she's still in the family that God gave her biological roots. So she's not going to have to wonder a lot, but I think that she just might have a change of mind after she becomes a mother and after that baby goes through her birth canal and she realizes the hard decisions and the, emotional strains that it takes on being a mother, and she could see it full circle. She can see it come full circle. Will she have the struggle of being addicted to a drug per se? No, but she's spoken about, things in her life, essay, sexual assault, coaches. Like, we've heard some of the stories that came out against her, and she talks about going to see a therapist. She talks about going to seek and get that professional help. So would it be an addiction? No, but it'll be something else that as a mother, she would have to tell or choose to tell her daughter, her son, where her struggles were. And I think that's just where I would look at it. It's just like, okay, you had struggles, not only as a person, but as a mother. And when mothers become mothers, they can then see or empathize with the struggle, no matter what it is, even if it wasn't the same exact struggle. Having children is no walk in the park. It's a responsibility.
You may be right. She might have a change of heart. She might get a little softer, and she may want, her mother to be around to experience, her being a mother, because she hasn't been there for so long. And now she's trying to show up. And you have to commend her, to really take a seat back to saying, hey, call me when you're ready to talk.
Yeah.
I'm not going to push the envelope. I'm not going, I'm here on your terms, basically. And I think that may be a way to soften her up and say, okay, she's not calling me, she's not asking me for anything. She just genuinely is trying to mend a relationship that was broken from bad decisions.
Yep. And I mean, like you said, you got to commend her, and I'm sure that she'll be there until Simone is ready. So I wanted to play this last video, then we're gonna get out here. We acting like we ain't got working on it. And I had a lot more that I did not show, but there's another day, another show. But I wanted to show this because, again, we come here and we speak on our perspectives. And for some of you who are watching, we may be the only adoptees that you've probably seen speak on this topic or, have opinions and have personal experience. But I wanted to play this video from someone else who is an actual adoptive parent who has this to say to the general audience about when adoptees speak out about their experience. Hold on now. Let me see.
Cue it up.
There's like a lag with
yeah.
And this is not appearing at all. See the lag. All right.
Click back on this comment for context. Holiday, you say, why do so many adopted kids not care about their adoptive parents or family? You seem to be in a mistaken view of how adoption works. Not every single adoptee who talks about these issues dislikes their adoptive parents. I love my adoptive parents. They love me. I am grateful for them because that's my choice. I am allowed to be grateful. But unfortunately, there are many adoptees who did not grow up with trauma-informed adoptive parents. Sadly, adoptees are more likely to be harmed by their adoptive parents than kept children. There are statistics about that. There has been a recent study showing that adoptees are 35 times more likely to end their lives because of their adoption. This isn't about us, whether we care about adoptive parents or not. This is about the outcomes for adopted children, and particularly in the US, what the process of adoption actually is. Adoption is trauma. It begins with maternal separation, and that is a trauma that every adoptee experiences. For those of us with trauma-informed adoptive parents, that trauma can be mitigated. It can be managed. It might not be fully healed, but it can be managed. Sure, the answer to the question is, why do so many adopted kids not care about their adoptive families? Because their adoptive families weren't good for them. They did not provide a better life that adoption supposedly promises. But there are many of us adoptees who do care about our adoptive parents, and we love them, and we still see the issues with adoption. I hope that helps.
So, discovering who you are through adoption helps when you have adoptive parents who are educated and informed about the trauma that adoptees go through. And that's why we say the uncomfortable things out loud over here, because they need to be heard. They need to be heard so that adoptive parents know the possibilities. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen with you and your adoptee. It doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to happen with you and your adoptee. It just means that there is a possibility that your adoptee will will definitely suffer that primal wound, will have the confusion and curiosity in their childhood, probably will have issues identifying who they are. They will have the grief and anger and reframing the story when you are not informed about the trauma that comes with adoption. You can't get adoption without it. Even the happiest child, even the most nurtured child, is still going to have some form of adoption trauma. And the way that you succeed at being there for them is educating yourself, is having the conversations, is saying the uncomfortable things out loud. Because at the end of the day, you want your adoptee to be fully who they are, and not who you created them to be, or not who you wanted them to be, but be exactly who God created them to be. And, I feel as though we're given these stories for a reason, so we can help others get through the same things that we have gone through and we continue to go through, because it's a continuous journey. And I wanted to play, Simone Biles, someone who is on top of the world, but something like adoption happens to her, and there are still conversations that need to take place. There's still things that need to be healed. Again, when she becomes a mother, she may look at it totally different. She may be seen through a whole nother lens. And I wanted to play Colin Kaepernick, because he is someone who was trying to explore who he was, and that was being stifled by his adoptive parents. And one thing that we don't want to feel is like we're in a box, especially at a time and age and space in our life when we know we can bust out of that box and become who we are, and fully, walk in our wholeness as being comfortable with ourselves. A lot of adoptees are not comfortable with themselves. They feel, like everybody's looking at them, or they're the odd person out, or they're too quiet. And so people are picking on them just for being too quiet. And it's like, dang, I ain't even bothering nobody. Y'all still got something to say, I wanted to honor your request again and go over these stages. And I know you were talking about a video, so I hope you're able to find that video of the newborns who they don't recommend adoption for. But, never would I say don't adopt. I would say be well informed, be prepared. A doctor doesn't go and do open heart surgery and don't know what the hell he's doing.
Okay? They don't?
No, they don't. Someone, a sports medicine doctor on the football field when the Eagles are playing, go Birds. They're not just going to come on a field, look at your injury and be like, you all right. No, you have to be well educated. Your doctors, your lawyers, your plumbers, your teachers, any type of profession. And being a parent is a profession. Okay. It's almost every profession wrapped up in one, because you are a doctor, you are a lawyer, you are a healer, you are all of those things. But if you don't have you right, and if you're not seeking the knowledge to know how to meet the needs, the emotional needs of your children, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult. And the hardest part is for the adoptee to be on this journey and discover who they are, and they can't do that, or feel like it's going to make you feel some type of way if they're fully who they are.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that last video, lady sounded like she had an accent, seemed like it. I want to say like Australia or somewhere. But everybody doesn't. It's like a person that's a mechanic aren't trying to be like a football player. It's a different field. It's a different mental awareness that you have to engulf yourself in. And people who aren't adopted don't understand because, they have, they've been raised, by their biological parents or someone in their family. And when you look at, and there are people who, and she was right about some of those stats, because like, I think I've talked about it before. Some people, they just adopt just for the money, or when you look at cases, or if you look online, you can see a lot of these stories where these folks that are adopting are hurting people, and or it's just people adopting because they get money and they don't really care about the person that they're getting, and they treat you any old kind of way. So it's facets to the different areas of adoption. You have some good people, some not so good people, and then you have people who only do it for the money. You have people who, once you get 18, that's it. Like, so.
Here for a good time, not a long time.
Yeah, so I think it just depends, right? And like you said, education, or I don't know how many classes my parents went through, but they were much older, and they just, for the most part, I'm not saying they were perfect, but like I was saying earlier, they understood, especially my mom, she understood the emotions that I was having. she understood, maybe because she worked in a hospital and she knew,
Oh yeah.
she was a nurse.
He was a servant.
Yeah, so like she knew a lot of the emotions. Not the not when I wasn't talking. They were very concerned about that. They were like they didn't know what was going on. But other than that, you know, um, it's really people who don't understand or try to understand, like even Colin Kaepernick's case, where his mother was not trying to understand the other side of him, or really try to understand, um, to allow him to be to grow. Um, Getting cornrows ain't gonna hurt you.
Unprofessional.
But he's in high school.
Right.
You're not trying to be professional in high school. Like, but I, and maybe their parents just had a different way of looking at things, and they weren't very informed.
I mean, they were white, so they come from a
Well,
system
yeah.
of white is right. Let's be real. And anything other than that is not right. And so,
Mhm.
was that even taken in consideration when you're adopting? Especially a mixed baby. And if you're going to hold true to what your parents and grandparents believe, then you shouldn't adopt that child. Just adopt a white one, full bred, full bred, full bred white. Like not even an ounce, a drop of color, because someday, somehow, there's going to be a conflict of interest there. And now your child is going to be deciding whether they continue to walk the walk and go through the actions and maneuvers of someone who's just appeasing you because you adopted me, or is there going to be genuine love there?
Mhm.
And it's just like that story that we played last week. I think I played it on the men's forum, where the girl told her best friend that she couldn't bring her black husband to her
Oh
wedding
yeah.
because her grandmother didn't want to see an interracial couple together. That stuff runs deep. I don't take stuff like that lightly. And so I can understand the frustration from Colin when it's just like, I didn't make myself this way. But at the end of
Mhm.
the day, I want to explore who I am in totality, not just the white part. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to know who I am in full. And, sometimes as adoptees, we have that advantage over
Mhm.
people in general. Our stories force us to really look at the reality of who we are, what we like, what we don't like, what we not going to tolerate, what we like, because at some point we didn't have a choice, and then you have a choice. Whereas, biological children, they don't know anything different. So is you stuck, how they say you stuck with these people? You
Stuck
know,
like Chuck.
you stuck like whereas adoptees, we're already observing everyone around us. We're gauging how people are making our nervous systems feel, and you know uh, you're trying to get used to an environment, or you're wondering why you're feeling a certain type of way. And like I said earlier, you don't even know that you're adopted, but inside you feel different. So, this 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 world of adoption is not
Twilight Zone.
it is not for the weak. It is not for the weak. Well, do you have any final thoughts? Because we're gonna get up out of here. It's about to be 3 hours we've been on this thing. And I usually reserve the 3 hour time slot for the men's one, but I just had so many slides to get through. I didn't even get through all of them.
I would love to see the other slides. No, I mean I think it's a good conversation. It's always I always like to hear like you're the first person I met that was adopted. I keep telling you that. So like I feel a very genuine connection from that standpoint because you understand um when I say Twilight Zone, when I talk about, you know, um things that other people may not experience because they don't realize it's a emotional roller coaster in
Right.
life. Um, like you say, one minute you could be happy, the next you be sad. Um, and I wasn't really. You say you were angry. I
Yeah.
wasn't really a angry kid per se. I think maybe when I started getting older, and I started understanding what was going on, and I was really getting pissed because um, I wanted to meet and find my parents, and I couldn't because I was like 15, and they were like, no, mm-mm." I wasn't ready then anyway. I
Right.
was just, I was just trying to push the envelope, and I was nowhere near ready.
You're curious.
Um, yeah, very curious, like Inspector Gadget on the final show. Um, but I say that to say I appreciate um you um, allow me to join you. I think since what last October, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I've actually launched my first video on my channel.
Woo!
So when
Yes.
you
Yes.
get a chance, check it out.
I will. I will.
Um, and I enjoy these conversations. I'm actually going to buy that book. What'd you say the name of that book was?
The Primal Wound.
I'm
Uh,
sure I can get it on Amazon, can
oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
I? Okay.
Primal Wound, Understanding the Adopted Child. Trying to get the
They look like it was wrote back in 1975.
I'm telling you, it's
Oh,
literally one of the first by Nancy Newton Verrier. So Nancy Newton Verrier, her last name is Verrier. Literally one of the first pieces of not first pieces of adoption literature, but one of the first pieces that got a lot of notoriety amongst the adoption community. Most times when you hear people talking about adoption professionals, those who are adoption just educated, when you hear them talk about adoption, I would say 8 to 9 times out of 10, they are literally talking. They bring this book up. They'll talk about this book. They'll give pointers from this book. It is definitely a staple in the adoption community.
well, I just ordered it, so
Okay, I'm gonna have to order mine because I think just like when I used to have my adoptee platform before I took a hiatus from YouTube, I used to go live, with another creator, and we actually went through 20 things I wish my adoptive parent knew about me. And that was a book that we would review. We would go live and we would talk, chapter through chapter. It was literally 20 things. So it was 20 chapters, but it went by pretty quick and easy. But that's another book you might want to get as well. That's the first book that I read, and I was like they say when you read the Bible is supposed to read you. When I read that book, it read me all the way up and down because I was like, it gets me. Who wrote this? Like, wait, what? Like, you don't find literature that you can necessarily relate to that's really speaking to the things that you struggle with as an adopted adoptee, not just as a human being, but as an adoptee.
Right.
And it brings in the lack of knowledge that adoptive parents have, and it doesn't shame them. It gives them tools, it gives them the resources to be able to have a little bit more knowledge from the adoptee's point of view. And I think this is important before you adopt, so that you got all these tools in your tool belt to know what to whip out, what time. And everything is not going to be the same for everyone, but at least you can, when something is going on, you can be like, you know what? I read in the book that that this would probably happen. Maybe I should just go sit with them.
Mhm.
Not going to say nothing, but maybe I should just. And again, when you love somebody, you're going to be uncomfortable. Like there's going to be times where you're uncomfortable because it's a stretching of who you are. When you become a parent, you're not supposed to just stay the same. What fun is that? When you become anything, you're not just supposed to stay the same. You're supposed to grow. You're supposed to excel. You're supposed to use wisdom and knowledge to your advantage, right?
Mhm.
So this wisdom and knowledge that we give, use it to your advantage. Don't take it as oh, there they go again talking about. No, this is awareness. This is advocacy, because there's somebody right now who is going through this and they don't know who to talk to. They don't know who to watch. They tired of all this garbage, content out here. And content like this really goes unnoticed because no one's seeking after it. No one's looking for it. But of course, the nonsense and the ratchery of it all just pops up on your timeline, right?
All
Because
day.
that's the trick of the enemy, distraction. Let me
Mhm.
distract them. Let me, divert their attention. Let me persuade them that this is better than that. And so, if you take the time to educate yourself, to get the tools that you need in your tool belt, your children are going to always choose you, just like you chose them. But this time is going to be out of authentic love, because you choosing kids, you don't even know these kids. And you think you have love in your heart for them until they piss you off, until they do something off the wall. And you like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? You're choosing them, but it's not really off of authentic love. It's out of a wanting to love. It's out of probably a lack of what you couldn't do naturally. It's not out of authentic love, but when you can authentically love someone and choose them, that's when you're winning. This ain't nothing forced. It ain't nothing that we have to do. It's something that we choose to do. And we choose
Mhm.
it every day out of authenticity. We choose it because we were able to bridge the gap between loss and gain. And we were able to recognize, the holes that were in the boat that was making the boat sink. And we were able to plug them up, and we were able to repair, and we were able to do those.
Mhm.
And that's what you call a successful adoption, in my opinion. A successful adoption is when you can, when it's a little shaky, but you can then get to a point where you're on steady ground. And then it might get shaky again, but you know how to get back on steady ground. um I think that a lot of adoptees don't know how to do that because it's such an emotional roller coaster that adults sometimes don't want to be taken out of their comfort zone to deal with
Mhm.
the tantrums of a child. And it's like, there's a reason, there's a reason that the child is acting like that. For one, they're a child, and for two, they have trauma. Let's be real about this, and not lazy.
Mhm.
So that's why we have these conversations. I appreciate you guys who watch. I appreciate you who engage, who, stop in for a little bit, show some love. Like I said earlier, definitely share the live with those you just, you don't even got to say nothing. Just link, boom, boom, bam, boom, done. Like, oh, did you mean to send me? Yeah, I thought, you might find it interesting. We've had some conversations before, and I don't necessarily know how to, have this conversation with you. So I'm gonna just point you in a direction of individuals who routinely have this conversation, and maybe you might be able to, eat off of some of this, or you might be able to,
Mhm.
get the courage to talk to other people about it. It could be very discreet. You don't have to make a big spectacle of it. But good night, Rain. Thank you so much for being here. But again, I appreciate you guys. I see a lot of people telling their stories in the chat, being very vulnerable, being very honest, being very hot, honest, open, and transparent. And it takes a lot of knowing yourself to be able to do that. Like I said, there was a time where I couldn't talk about my adoption story without crying. Like, I'm a crier. And there was a time where I couldn't even talk about it without crying. One out of pain, one out of just pure thankfulness of where I am in my life today and how it could have been different. But I'm at a point now where it's just like it literally just flows, freely off of my lips, and I'm willing to help and assist and advocate for anyone who needs it, because it's important. And I realized that it took me a long time to get here, and I didn't realize that the process that I was going through, just like adoption, I didn't realize the process that I was going through to be able to sit here and have these conversations with people I don't even know. I mean, I don't know who watching it, but I appreciate you guys for showing up and wanting to seek out the knowledge or wanting to be among those who had similar situations and life happenings. Because sometimes, like they said in the video, who do you talk to? Who do you really talk to about these things? So thank you guys so much. Anything else, Leon? If not, we're gonna close this out and get up out of here.
No, I'm all set. Had a ball as usual. Looking forward to whatever the conversation is going to be tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think I may just do a little bit more of a deep dive on Ashley Janae, just kind of like a timeline of events, see if anything comes up, any new news on her story. I've actually come across a lot. I've sent you some of the videos, just as one part of the story. I mean, one part of our live tomorrow, because I think that this deserves coverage, whether you are a professional journalist, whether you are a content creator, whether it needs to continue to be talked about, because it is bigger than Ashley. It's about a continent who is corrupt and are able to be paid off by those who have the means, in exchange for tourism, in exchange for this person who has the means to now invest in their hospitals and invest in, their healthcare and things of that nature. So I do want to still cover it tomorrow and then and uncover some things, but I do have other videos in the vault that I saved since last week that I want to go over as well. So thank you guys again. Definitely donate to the channel if your heart leads you there. Cash App is Michelle 1500. But if not, I appreciate you and have a good night.